Hello, I'm Mamadou at Timbuktu, and I'm here today with
Yemi Adewunmi.
yes, and today we're here for another edition of Collector's Lens, the segment in which we go into the home of the art collector to understand their journey when it comes to art collecting. And I'm really excited to just speak to you today. Thanks, first of all, for welcoming us into your home.
Oh, you're welcome. It's a pleasure to chat with you and show you my collection and all the things that I'm surrounded by.
Yes, I'm really excited. But let's just start from the beginning. Can you tell us like who you are and what do you do?
Yeah. I wear a lot of hats, but I'm a tech entrepreneur.
Hmm.
I have a startup company that I co-founded. I am a designer, a visual
Hmm.
designer. I specialize in web design, user user interface, and user experience design, as well as I'm a photographer. I kind of started my career in tech and design through photography.
Yeah,
And then I'm also an art advisor. I've been really interested in bridging the gap between artists and their audiences and helping people find and discover art that they want to live with and be around.
amazing. Yeah, and being in your home, what's great to see is like just this combination of like your personal art that you acquired, like your photography that you made, like paintings that you've made. So like it's a very artsy home. I love it.
Thank
Can you
you.
take us to the beginning and tell us like how did you fall in love with the arts?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess as a kid, I've always appreciated the arts.
Hmm.
I guess art was my favorite art class or my favorite class in school, but
So
I decided to focus on politics and policy and pre-law and going towards a career that had more legs to it that my parents supported. But all the while in my career, there's instances where I expressed my creativity. When I was in college, one of my extracurricular activities was to design the Black Student Union's magazine. So like, I don't know
mm,
where that came from. I don't think I was really conscious of myself trying to get into graphic design or visual
yeah,
design, but that's just an instance of me just appreciating the arts, going to museums, going to live music. I think I've just always been really into the arts. I just never put a title to it.
yeah.
But then in 2015 or so, 2012 or so, I started seeing myself as a photographer. I would
Mm,
document my life through my phone's camera,
yeah.
and eventually I bought my first DSLR camera and started experimenting with photography and teaching myself how to use a camera and capture the life that I lived, travel experiences and things like that. So I think I just always lived amongst art and appreciation for the beauty around me, and I'm just now really expressing that through my home and
Yeah.
through the space that I spend most amount of time in, which is my house.
I love to hear that. And so okay, so I get it. You know, always had this passion for like the arts when he was young, but of course, we both have African parents. Like this doctor, lawyer, engineer, so you went more of like the poli sci route.
Hmm.
But I love the fact that you still took the time to like invest in like artistic activities and like really push yourself out the box, right? Like I think that's part of the beauty of like art in general, right? Like no matter what you do, whether you're in tech, STEM, creative field, it allows you to like unbound yourself and like really like explore these different things. So talk to me a
Yes.
little bit more about like your photojournalistic journey.
Yeah. I mean, to your point about art being able to bridge the gap within any industry or space that you enjoy, for me, it was travel. And so my
Yeah.
first travel experiences, whether with family or solo by myself, just paying attention to the things and the arts and artisanship around me and what I wanted to bring home with me as souvenirs.
Yeah.
So I think travel is definitely like my biggest inspiration. When I go
Yeah.
somewhere, I want to remember that I was there, and usually that
Mm.
means bringing home something as small as a magnet
Yeah.
or a postcard. And I think that's
Yeah.
really where it started for me, was being able to document my experience being around the world, domestically, internationally,
Yeah.
locally. Like travel doesn't have to be super grand or far
Hmm.
away. It
Yeah.
could just be like you stop at a fair or stopping at an event in town and taking home a souvenir that like creatively, artistically like resonates with you. So that's really where it started for me. Um, and then I think as I've gotten older, it's like the certain themes that really are important to me,
Hmm.
which are things like being grateful for the beauty
Yep.
that is around me, like
Yeah.
God's creations and things like that.
Hmm.
So I'm always surrounded by beautiful landscapes
Yeah.
or architecture that really inspires me, and then people like art that represents people, emotions,
Yeah,
humanity. Those kinds of themes really help curate the art for me because it's the stuff that I want to be around versus other themes that are maybe negative or not as resonant with me. So yeah, I think for me it's really about knowing who I am, what my values are, and trying and identifying that art when I'm moving around the world and bringing a little bit of that with me back home.
I love it. I love it. So I'm seeing these themes around like exploration and liberation coming through within your story. So you've gone from always having a passion for the arts, becoming a self-taught photographer, dabbling into like different creative fields yourself, and then traveling and starting to like collect. Right? We mentioned offline that you start off with magnets and you kind of moved on. Can you talk to us about like that experience of getting your first piece of art that you collected?
Yeah. Oh, my first like real piece. Um, I think I'll point to maybe like in the mid 2010s, maybe like 2013 or
Yeah.
so. I took a trip to Nigeria with my family, with my parents, and we went to my maternal grandfather's village. And
Mm,
I brought home some pieces that are around the house: a mask,
yeah.
a portrait of a woman made out of interesting like organic material,
Yeah.
sculpture, and those 3 or 4 pieces that I brought home, I think for me was a connection to home, right?
Mm-hmm.
Connection to family and culture and heritage. But also the fun thing about collecting art or stopping to buy art, it really is about like what is drawing you to a piece.
Yeah.
You're often surrounded with many options. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
not just one or two things. So it's just it's it's finding me where I'm at, whether it's based on the price point,
Yeah.
can I get this size piece or this or a smaller piece?
Mm-hmm.
It's meeting me in my feelings and my emotions. So like being home and connected to my heritage, like
Yeah.
what I was drawn to, it was an image of a woman. It was an image of a mask. Like it was
Sure.
another image of a woman. And so I think when I think about that experience, it really was just about paying attention and being very present in the moment of buying and just being like, what am I most drawn to?
Right.
What do I think I can live with forever, or I would love to pass down one day? Um, and yeah, just again, like what speaks to me specifically, not just generally like what looks good. Because again, when
Mhm.
you're buying art, you're often surrounded with so many options,
Yeah.
and it's fun to kind of see like what your mood is feeling toward, like is drawn towards in that
Mm,
moment, and yeah, and to look back and come back and say, I remember that moment when I bought that, and yeah, it's good to have a piece of my heritage with me, which is kind of hard as a child of an immigrant
mm-hmm.
being first generation here in this country.
Yep.
It's our parents didn't really get to bring a lot of stuff with them when they
Yep.
immigrated here, so it was cool to be able to go back and bring something of our culture.
Mm. A lot to unpack there. A lot to unpack. So one, I definitely agree with this idea of like, I guess you can even say that was like part of like a 360 moment in your life of like, being first gen, going back home to Nigeria, going back to where your family's actually from in that local community and like acquiring art to like take home and like have a piece with you here. Like, I think that's really powerful and it speaks to the fact that art has the ability to capture culture, history, and really this intergenerational bond that we want to pass on. Um, I like to like you saying like just some of the questions you ask yourself before you buy, because what I find is oftentimes, people may enjoy art, but for whatever reason, they feel like they have to be super sophisticated, where it's like arts degree or super deep arts knowledge or like social status or social economical background. But I think you had a perfect framework of what does this really speak to for me, like in terms of like my mood, what memories do I want to have when I look at this piece, and like do I possibly even want to like pass it down to like my family? I think that's like a great framework to like just think about getting into the art collecting game.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's very the art collecting industry. I'm myself just getting to understand it more officially.
Yeah.
I think there's like let's say uppercase A, uppercase C, art collecting, right? Like the
Mm-hmm.
official title, which kind of feels like you have to make certain decisions strategically
Yeah.
in order to perhaps get some sort of return on investment. I think of art collecting more so like what are the pieces that I want to live amongst when I
Yeah.
wake up in the morning,
Yeah.
when I come home from work, when I'm cooking, like what kinds of sounds and sights do I want to have around me? And the value then speaks for itself, right? Like the value is what you give it. And the value is in the story of how you then pass it on to someone else in the future. But yeah, for me, I hope to break down that barrier for people to just really understand living with art is really just another manifestation of your identity and the things that you care about, the artists that you believe in,
Yeah.
the colors that you enjoy, the
Mm-hmm.
figures that you enjoy, the
Absolutely.
mediums, the textures, like all of it is so sensory and specific to who you are. That it's almost like like the clothes that are on your body, right? Even
Mm-hmm.
more specialized, right? And more tailored because it is like more art can be more unique than a shirt from a store. But yeah, I think there's a maybe a misnomer or a disconnect between like the big art world and art
Yeah.
collecting versus like what is art that I am curating for myself and my family and my
Absolutely.
friends. And in my house I do think about myself when I
Mm-hmm.
collect art, but it's an extension of who I am, so that when I am hosting my friends and family, if I'm having an event at my home, they see a representation of myself in the
Right.
art as well. And so often people ask me about, where
Mm-hmm.
I got something or who this artist was, or to tell a story about it. And like that's fun, the same way
Mm-hmm.
that we kind of get excited when people ask us about other personal parts of our lives.
Yep.
And yeah, I hope to demystify that um, art collecting has to be super sophisticated. It's super personal.
Yeah.
Even when you are interacting with an artist, like if you truly get to speak with an artist and you're inquiring about a piece that they have, it's super personal because they'll tell you, who they are and where
Yep.
they came from and where the piece came from. And that means so much more than like maybe a trend that's happening in the
Yep.
in the larger art world or in a different country. Like it really is about a one-to-one connection between you and an artist. And so the other part of what I enjoy about art buying is that you get to support an artisan,
Yep.
someone who wants to make a
Absolutely.
living off of creating and telling stories and expressing themselves. So I hope we can like break down art collecting from that like big sophisticated space that it's been existing in and break it down to like community building and
Mm-hmm.
connection and being able to go to a local street fair and connect with an artist, a local, your neighbor, somebody who's also from your city or town or state, and
Yeah.
build a connection and support them as a small business owner, and they can support you and like bring joy into your life. And so that's how I see the art buying space. That's how I would like to see the art buying space. It's a little bit idealistic, like there are real ways to make money through
Mm-hmm.
the investment in art, but I think at a preliminary level, before you even think about return on investment, it's like identifying what you're drawn to, what you're interested in, what sparks joy for you,
Yeah.
what doesn't. Like it's almost as good to know what kind of art you don't like as it
Yeah.
is to know what kind of art you
Mm-hmm.
do like. So
It
yeah,
is.
there's a lot of elements to it that I think are really important and should be available and accessible to more of us than it is right now.
Absolutely. And to your point, the great benefit of art collecting is just really the overall ecosystem and community that we're building, right? Like you acquiring a piece of art, to your point, is more than just having a beautiful work on your walls, but it's like about supporting the artisan. It's about having, when you have guests over, have using art as a means to like build more deeper connections and conversations, right? Saying like, oh, I purchased this piece in Nigeria from my ancestral land, and this is like the meaning and like the use of the work and what have you. Like that ultimately leads to like to this cultural elevation that's like super fun and doesn't feel like you're being lectured, right? Because you're just having
Mm-hmm.
conversations. And I do want to go back because you brought up a great point about, as a viewer, if you're interested in collecting art, this idea of like building something that's personal to you and like the narrative that you want your art collection to say. I'm curious to know, like, what's the narrative that your collection says about you?
That's a great question. Um, yeah, I guess I've been curating for years, like
Yeah,
pieces and tchotchkes that I love that are all
yeah,
around me. But like, is it cohesive? Does it all tie together? And I do think there are some definitely some themes. I find, I often stop for pieces that uh, remind me of myself or my family. So
mm,
usually representing Black women,
yeah,
um, certain types of figures of women and postures,
yeah,
usually empowered women, women who are in a leadership position or wearing a crown or
yeah.
holding their head up high. Like that's kind of a common theme that I have in my home. Um, Love and family,
Mm,
love, intimate love. So like love between partners.
yeah.
It's a bit aspirational for me. It's a good reminder
Hmm.
that love exists
Yeah,
and that we are all deserving of that kind of love that is usually represented through art is
yeah.
like super intimate and kind of idealistic in a way. Um, Themes of just travel, places I've been. So I have pieces from artists. I went to college in Pittsburgh, so there's a piece here that represents the city of Pittsburgh and its bridges. I have a lot of art from local artists here in DC.
Hmm.
I've been in DC for about 8 years and I love it here.
Yeah,
I'm calling it home, claiming it as home. And yeah, I love like going around local events that happen in the city and be able to stop at a artist booth.
right.
We have a lot of street fairs here in the city, so
Hmm.
being able to go and identify a local artist that I resonate with and find a piece that usually speaks to me. Again, on the theme of womanhood, love,
Hmm.
family, um, and even just like architecture or
Yeah,
remember like places, sights, and scenes. So I have a piece here from when I traveled to Rome. I just bought a piece from a street artist
yeah.
that and it was representing a basilica out there.
Okay.
Um, I was in Jamaica and bought a piece on a beach. So a lot of it is reminds me of myself, my personal life, my travels, and then themes of like empowerment and love, which we all need, it's can't go
Amen to
wrong with
that.
that.
I love that. I love that. Quick thing. One, you went to school in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Which school?
I went to the University of Pittsburgh. Pitt.
Hey, Hell Pitt. I
Hail
went
to
there for grad
Pitt.
school.
Oh, dope, 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 dope. I
Yeah,
didn't know that.
yeah, yeah,
Yes, that's Baron Batch, artist. He often tags and has art like all over the city in
yeah.
hidden places, but also has art available, work available. Kind of like has a graffiti style to it, but
Yeah.
the bridges, right? Like you can instantly look at that and know that that's Pittsburgh.
Facts. I see it.
You see it, right?
And that's the beauty about like more abstract art too, is because of like, its abstract nature, it could there's like so many perspectives of like how you can like view your work. But like once somebody says, "Oh, I see this," you can always see it and you can never unsee it, right? So I'm like, "Oh, duh! Like those are the bridges, and
Yeah,
that's like the skyline."
skyline.
That's really cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's nice. Okay, okay, Pittsburgh.
It'll be interesting to see where my art buying and taste goes. I think that's also an exciting piece part of it. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know. I may be biased because I am an artist myself, and
Hmm.
so I think I instantly think about juxtaposition and
Yeah.
composition and themes and representation and symbolism and inner meaning of work. That's also like the unique and interesting part of, or that's like the beautiful part about art buying and collecting is like you always bring your personal lens to the work.
Yep.
So say I was an engineer, say I was a data scientist, like
Hmm.
I would look at art in a particular way
Yep.
and it exists, it's out there, you'll find it and you will love it. And
Hmm.
you don't really have to explain it to anybody. You can just have to explain it to yourself, like why you want something. And the justification is you're supporting a local artist or you're supporting a entrepreneur, a creative entrepreneur. You're telling a story, you are continuing a story, you are creating history. Like those are
Hmm.
the types of feelings you want to get from buying art as opposed to like is this cool enough, or is this going to sell one day, or is this trendy? I think it's really just about, connecting the synapses in your brain around like the things that you're experiencing in your interests, and
Yeah.
connecting that to the artist yourself.
Okay. Dope. And it just reminds me of something I like to always say is, you know, nobody dislikes art. It's just about finding art that resonates with you, right? Because it's so diverse. Like there's something for somebody.
Mm-hmm.
There's right. So to your point, like maybe your perspective as like a more STEM, left brain type person is different from somebody who's a bit more right brain. However, nonetheless, there's always going to be a piece of art that might appeal to that person on either side of the brain spectrum, what have
Yeah.
you. So,
Yeah. And I'd even argue like perhaps in order to find the art you're looking for, you maybe want to create the art you're looking for too.
yeah, that's a great point.
I mean, that might be a reach for people who don't consider themselves artsy at all, but it's another indication of like the necessity of art.
Mm-hmm.
It's an expression of the artist, yes.
Yeah.
In many ways, it's a reflection of the times that they live in,
Mm-hmm.
or something that they want, a message they want to share. But I would argue that if someone's like, I'm not into art at all, and I never find stuff that I like, I'm not into this abstract stuff, I'm not into this weird stuff, I think it would be interesting to see what they would create themselves. And that's the beauty of it. It's about like expression. If you
Mm-hmm.
can't find someone, if you can't identify someone you can share the expression with, or the expression doesn't resonate with you, it means that maybe there's something there for you to create, and fill a void for somebody else who's also having a hard time finding a piece
Mm-hmm.
that resonates with them.
I like that. There's so many artists who I meet that have like that similar experience of wanting to create something because they've just seen a gap in the space, right? So, hey, if you're watching this, take the time, grab a canvas, or maybe use some kind of software or what have you, make some kind of art. Just, give it a try.
I fully endorse this message. Yes.
Paid for by.
Yes, I think we all have creativity in us, but it's hard. Like society kind of puts it all in a box, right? You have to have the certain materials and the certain tools and certain experience. But
Yeah.
we make art every day. Whether it's cooking,
Mm-hmm.
hosting an event or a party
Yep.
with your friends, and curating the vibes. Like that's art.
Yeah.
Singing the showers, art.
Hey.
Gardening or mowing the lawn, like taking care of your like yard
Environment.
work.
Yeah.
You have a vision. Basically, you have a vision of something that doesn't exist, and then you create it. So that is art. And I think that as long as we kind of continue to always walk towards that, it'll feel less intimidating. It'll feel more approachable, and it'll feel like I think we'll eventually have more appreciation for artists because we know how much effort goes into like creating something out of nothing.
Yeah. Amazing. So talk to me. So you've in your own personal journey, you've gone from a lover to a creator to a collector, and now you're shifting over to advisor, right? Tell me a bit more about that. Like, what's the motivation behind it? Like, what got you interested in wanting to become an art advisor?
Yeah. I've been kind of it's I've been kind of like speaking to it through this conversation, but it's really just in my desire to want to bridge the gap between artists and everyday people, like
Yeah.
people and their audiences, and really break down the misnomers and misconceptions about art. And I think now more than ever, right? We're living right now in June 2025. I don't even know
Mm-hmm.
what month we're in. We're in June 2025. We're just living in some very challenging times.
Yeah.
Every generation of people have lived through challenging times, and the common denominator in all of these like challenging times has been the importance of art to document the experience, to mark history, to empower people, to bring joy to people.
Yeah.
And I believe in all those things, and we're going through a really tough time right now, and I think art can help us. I think that a lot of, again, going back to the need to express ourselves creatively and in different formats, I think that's definitely helped me personally, like through
Mm.
stressful times,
Yeah.
through like uncertainty, like being able to express myself and my feelings through creative ways has always been a tool of mine. And so, yeah, the art advising piece, part of it is just like truly like philosophical. I just
Yeah.
believe the artists are documentarians
Yep.
of history,
They are.
and and then like I think from a economic standpoint, I think it's really important for artists to be able to make a living.
Mm-hmm.
There are people who knew at birth that maybe not from birth, but they knew at a young age that they wanted to like cure cancer or be a
Yeah.
doctor, or they, they're very passionate about, um, you know, inventing something or being an engineer. And so, same thing with artists. Artists can't help but get the work out there. And so, I truly believe in supporting artists being able to do that for a living, to make a
Mm-hmm.
living wage, and that a lot of times that is the barrier there is somewhat operational, like somewhat like the stuff that businesses have to do in order to meet their audience.
Mm-hmm.
So one of my backgrounds is in running businesses. I
Yep.
have a tech startup company, and I serve as chief operating officer in that business. And so just knowing a lot about like the mechanics of how to make money,
Yep.
and the the skills to market yourself, create a revenue operating
Mm-hmm.
system, to hire people, build teams, things like that. So these are things that artists don't necessarily have a lot of
Yeah.
experience in, or skill sets in, because they're focused so much on their art and their
Yeah.
craft.
Mm-hmm.
So helping artists just fill that gap, that operational gap, to
Yeah.
help them generate revenue, to help them grow their audience base, to increase the value of their work. All those kinds of things I'm very curious about, and I'm doing a lot of experimentation and learning
Yeah.
in this space. I don't think it's actually that much different than tech startup world. I'm finding that the principles of just establishing a solid brand. Well, the work has to speak for itself. It has
Right.
to be good, but then a lot of the mechanics around like how to get yourself out there, how to apply for programs, apply for fairs, or be in the right rooms with people. Those are kind of skills that I would love to um, help artists learn, embrace, take advantage of. And then also on the other side of like as a buyer, yeah, again, just helping people demystify the
Yeah.
experience of art buying.
Okay. I love to hear that. Yeah. There's a lot of work that needs to be done for like both ends of the spectrum, right? Like ensuring that artists are amplified and put in the right space in which their works can be truly appreciated,
Mm-hmm.
and then ensuring that collectors find a space to be accessible enough where they can find the works that
Mm-hmm.
belongs in their homes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm really excited for you. Like
Thank
I'm looking forward.
you.
Anything in particular you're excited about as you jump into this new chapter?
Yeah, you're right. It's like completely new chapter. I'm trying to just pace myself a little bit and just
Yeah.
really be a student and learn as much as possible. That's always been the foundation of,
Right.
my careers and business moves, has been to humble myself
Mm-hmm.
and learn as much as possible. So I'm actually heading out to Art Basel in Switzerland next week.
Okay.
Yeah, we talked about Basel and Miami. I was
Mm-hmm.
there this past December. Um, and I had a great time. I really enjoyed it. It was my first Art Basel, and
Yeah.
just experience like major art fair experience. Actually, I would say.
Yeah.
Um, but next week I'll be in Switzerland for that fair, and I'm supporting an artist,
Right.
sponsoring a local DC artist to show at a fair. It's called Volta Art
Wow.
Fair. So I'll be out there, and I think I'll just be like meeting people, admiring beautiful things, and taking pictures. But again, being really a student, just to soak up everything. And my goal is just to identify opportunities where my skills,
Mm-hmm.
meet the moment, or that fill a gap that I see. I'm not really interested in recreating any wheels. Like I don't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily. I definitely don't assume I know everything about the art world, but I'm excited to take it to another level.
Yeah.
Another thing I did last year was to become a major patron at an art gallery here in DC.
Dope.
I'm a contemporaries member at the Phillips
Okay.
collection. So that's given me exposure to events and artist talks and events with curators. And so, yeah, I'm really excited about just being a student again. And yeah, so again, being a student, like it just, buying books. I was just at the Whitney Museum to see Amy Sherrill's exhibit,
Yeah.
American Sublime, which is incredible. It's so good. Like she's so talented, and the pieces are just massive scale and so detailed. But yeah, I left the museum with some art books, so I'm just excited to read more.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize a lot of art books super narrative. Like a lot of it is just writing. Some books have a lot of writing in them. It's like reading a novel or a nonfiction book. But it's really important for me to like see how an artist interprets something and puts it into their art and compare it to how I've interpreted their art. And so I'm excited to just like continue to do more of that kind of work. And I don't know where to lead me, but it's fun. And I think that's the beautiful part about art is just to pursue what you are drawn to. And there's no rules, there's no bounds, there's no limits. Like it's really just about how much you want to go deep into it. And I've been finding it really empowering to do, especially in this time period. And yeah, it's a good way to kind of put things in perspective, right? Put things about humanity and society into perspective by looking at other art and how artists interpret what's happening around them.
Okay. Well, I'm really excited. So, one, make sure you add me as your +1 for Basel next week. And
you're gonna be there? I have a ticket.
We'll talk offline. We'll talk offline. And actually, speaking of Basel, I'm not sure if you saw it, but they're actually expanding that fair series, and they're going to have their inaugural Art Basel in Doha in February of next year. So you might want to put that on your radar.
Yes.
Yeah.
That'll be huge. Let me start my piggy bank for that one.
You're right. Those are goals for me too.
Yes.
But yes, this has been like very just a riveting conversation. Just love like just all the gems you had about your personal journey. I think there's a lot for a viewer to learn in terms of how to interact with the art space, and you can wear multiple hats and add value to the ecosystem multiple ways while still being a student of the game. So that's great to hear. What's like for like the viewer who's like they're excited, they heard your story, and they want to like get into art collecting, but they still don't really know the next step to take? What's the bit of advice you would get them to get them over the hump?
Yeah, I would say, I guess I can give feedback from my perspective. I would say start small. Start local. You're surrounded by lots of artists around you in your local community.
Yep.
If your city or town hosts street fairs, county fairs, farmers markets, oftentimes artists are displaying their work there. And it's not to say that you're going to love everything that an artist puts out there, but just to like keep an eye on art, see what you're drawn to, what you're not drawn to, what styles you're into, and so on and so forth. Even like magnets, like when you're at an airport or a train station in a new place and you have an option of different magnets to choose from, like figure out like why you are drawn to one magnet versus another, or like why you would purchase one over another. Like for some people it's a random decision. For me, I'm looking for certain things, or I'm comparing comparing certain things within a magnet. But start small, postcards, prints, going to a museum, and in their gift shops they often have prints or postcards of the art that's in the gallery that they're displaying. And so a lot of my pieces, I kind of start there with just like, what can I get from the gift shop that will remind me of this experience? And so start small and start local, I think, are my biggest piece of advice.
I love it. And finally, where can people find you and stay connected?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I'm at Yemi.Adewunmi everywhere. So that's Yemi, Yemi, .ADEWUNMI.com. Not .com, just Yemi.Adewunmi.
Great.
Yes.
Well, thank you again for just a real fruitful conversation and for showing us your beautiful collection. And this is Mamadou of Timbuktu signing